Cole Archer had always been a man of the desert, his hat worn low to shield his eyes from the harsh sun, his boots well-traveled over the dry earth. He had spent years in the wilderness living by his own rules, far away from the complications of town life. He had come from a long line of cowboys, and like them, he had learned to survive by trusting his instincts and the tools at his disposal. Right now, he was in the middle of the desert, far from any signs of civilization, on his way to a small town to sell cattle and pick up supplies. The heat was unbearable, and the air shimmered above the ground like a mirage. His horse, Whiskey, was a sturdy creature, but even she was beginning to show signs of fatigue. They had been riding for hours, and there was no sign of a watering hole or shade in sight. Cole wiped his brow, staring at the vast, empty desert that stretched endlessly in front of him. He had been through worse, but the desolation around him felt heavier today. As he kicked his horse forward, Cole noticed something odd on the horizon. A figure barely visible against the harsh sunlight was stumbling along the trail. He squinted his eyes, trying to make out the shape. The figure seemed to move with difficulty, dragging something behind them. Cole pulled back on the reins, slowing Whiskey to a walk. He wasn't sure if it was a person in need or just some mirage playing tricks on him, but he couldn't ignore it. It wasn't long before the figure came into clearer view. It was a woman, wearing ragged clothing and with long dark hair tangled from days in the desert. She was on her knees, and from the way she moved, it was clear she was struggling. Her horse, what had once been a proud steed, lay collapsed on the ground, barely breathing. The woman herself appeared weak, her body battered and bruised. Her eyes were sunken, as though she had been wandering without water or food for far too long. Cole's heart tightened. He had seen his share of hardships in the desert, but never had he encountered someone in this condition. He knew the desert could be unforgiving, but seeing a woman in such pain struck something deep within him. His instincts screamed at him to help, but there was one problem. He had no idea who she was. In these parts, trust was a rare thing, and the last thing a cowboy like Cole needed was trouble. Still, he couldn't leave her to die. Cole dismounted, his boots kicking up dust as he walked over to the woman. Her eyes flickered as she saw him approaching, but she didn't speak. Her lips cracked in the heat, and she winced as she tried to lift her head. "You're hurt," Cole said softly, kneeling down beside her. "What happened?" The woman's gaze drifted to the remains of her horse, and she shook her head slowly. "Bandits. They came out of nowhere." Her voice was weak, but the fire in her eyes didn't match her frail body. "They took everything." Cole glanced at her horse, which was clearly too injured to continue. He knew the odds were slim that she would survive in the desert without any means of transportation, and he could see the exhaustion in her eyes. The way the sun beat down on her only made it worse. His mind raced, considering his options. He looked down at his own horse, Whiskey, standing nearby. She was strong, but Cole had no illusion about how difficult the desert could be. He wasn't far from town, but he would still need to be cautious. He didn't have much choice. If he left this woman here, she would surely die. Without a word, Cole stood up and walked to his horse. He untied the reins and led her over to the woman. He looked down at the stranger, whose eyes were filled with confusion and gratitude. "I'm giving you my horse," Cole said. "She'll get you to the nearest town." The woman's brow furrowed, her lips parting in disbelief. "Why?" she asked, her voice trembling. "I'm just an Apache." Cole paused. It was true that the Apache were known to fight fiercely against outsiders, but that didn't mean they were all enemies. He had met a few in his travels, men and women who simply wanted to live their lives in peace. This woman, however, seemed different. She was alone, injured, and far from her people. There was no reason for him to withhold help, no matter her background. "You're a person in need," Cole replied simply, "and I can't leave you here to die." The woman stared at him for a long time, her eyes scanning his face as if looking for something hidden beneath his rugged exterior. Finally, she nodded, accepting his offer. "Thank you," she whispered, her voice filled with a kind of reverence. Cole helped her onto the horse, adjusting her as best as he could to make her comfortable. He knew the journey to the town would still be tough for her, but it was the only option. He didn't want to leave her alone in the desert, but it was the only thing he could do to ensure she had a chance at survival. Before he turned to leave, the woman spoke again, her voice low but steady. "What you've given me, I will repay, more than you can imagine." Cole looked at her, a puzzled expression on his face. "What do you mean?" But before he could get an answer, The woman fell silent, her head resting against the horse's mane as she closed her eyes. Cole stood for a moment longer, unsure of what to make of her words. He had no idea what kind of repayment she meant, but he didn't expect much. He was simply trying to help someone in need. With a final glance at her, Cole turned and remounted Whiskey. He gave the reins a gentle tug, signaling the horse to move forward. His thoughts wandered back to the road ahead, the town he was heading to, and the inevitable work he would have to do once he arrived. But something about the woman's words lingered in his mind. He shook it off, chalking it up to the delirium of the desert sun. She was a stranger, and strangers had a way of speaking in riddles. The world was full of mysteries, but for now, Cole had enough of his own to worry about. Cole Archer could not shake the image of the Apache woman standing alone in the desert. The way she had looked at him with those strange, glowing eyes, the mysterious air that seemed to follow her, unsettled him. It had been days since he last saw her, but her words lingered in his mind. "What you've given me, I will repay, more than you can imagine." He shook his head, trying to focus on the road ahead. There was a town to reach, work to be done. But no matter how hard he tried, his mind kept returning to her. Who was she? And what had she meant by those cryptic words? The days passed slowly as Cole continued his journey toward the town. The desert was as unforgiving as ever, with only the occasional sign of life, a cactus here, a distant mountain there. He kept his distance from other travelers, preferring the solitude of the desert. But as the sun began to set on the fourth evening after the encounter, things started to take an odd turn. Cole was nearing a small settlement when a strange gust of wind swept through the plains, carrying with it a sudden chill. The air felt different, as though something had shifted. A feeling he couldn't explain settled in the pit of his stomach. He urged Whiskey forward, eager to reach the town before nightfall. But as he drew closer, he saw something in the distance that made his heart skip a beat. The ground was covered in a strange fog, swirling like smoke, and a crackling energy seemed to hang in the air. It was as though the land itself was alive. A silhouette appeared through the fog, the Apache woman. Cole's heart raced. She was standing in the middle of the road, her figure glowing with an ethereal light. The fog around her moved with a life of its own, bending and shifting in response to her presence. Her eyes, those eyes, were glowing brighter than before, and her once injured form was now strong and whole. "What in the world?" Cole whispered to himself, reining in his horse. The Apache woman turned her head slowly, as if she had been expecting him. Her face was calm, but there was a powerful energy emanating from her. She raised a hand, and the wind around them stilled. The fog dissipated, revealing the road ahead. "You've come," she said, her voice smooth and steady, as though nothing had changed. "I knew you would." Cole dismounted, his mind racing. "How are you?" He struggled to find the words. "What is this? How did you—" The woman stepped closer, her gaze locking with his. "The desert holds many secrets," she said. "The earth is older than you know, and it remembers those who walk it with respect." She paused, her voice dropping to a whisper. "You gave me your only horse, and for that I will give you a gift." Cole's confusion deepened, but he didn't speak. He couldn't. The energy in the air was thick with something he couldn't explain. The woman extended her hand, palm up, and a soft glow radiated from her fingertips. The desert around them seemed to come alive, as though responding to her touch. The ground beneath them hummed with a quiet power. "What is this?" Cole asked, his voice a mixture of awe and fear. "What are you doing?" The woman's lips curled into a soft smile. "You gave me a part of yourself. Now I will give you something in return." She raised her hand, and the air around them shimmered. Suddenly, Cole felt a surge of energy rush through him. It started in his chest and spread outward, filling his entire body. It was as though every fiber of his being was being awakened, energized. His heart pounded in his chest, and his limbs felt stronger than they had ever been. The power coursed through him like electricity, a force unlike anything he had ever experienced. What is this?" Cole gasped, staggering back as the energy pulsed through him. The woman watched him closely, her expression unreadable. "You are no longer just a man. You are something more," she said softly. "The land has accepted you, Cole Archer. You are now bound to it. The gift I offer is a power born of the earth itself, the ability to protect those you care for, to heal what is broken, and to strike down what threatens the balance." Cole's mind raced. He had always been a man of action, a man who survived on his wits and strength, but this was something entirely different. "I don't understand," he whispered, his voice thick with confusion and awe. Why me? Why did you choose me? The Apache woman stepped forward, her eyes locking with his. Not all are chosen, but you. You have shown honor, and the earth rewards those who honor it. Cole stood there trying to process what was happening. His muscles were still twitching with energy, his mind a whirlwind of thoughts. The power was overwhelming, and yet it felt right. He had been given something incredible, something that could change the course of his life forever. But with that power came responsibility. He knew that now. The Apache woman's voice was calm and steady, but there was a warning in her words. You must be careful with this gift. The desert is ancient, and its power can be as destructive as it is protective. Use it wisely, or it will consume you. Cole nodded slowly, still trying to grasp what had just happened. He wasn't sure if he was dreaming or if this was real, but one thing was clear. His life was no longer the same. The desert had given him something beyond imagination, and now he had to figure out how to use it. The woman smiled once more, a look of approval in her eyes. You will figure it out in time, Cole Archer. The earth will guide you. She turned then, slowly fading into the mist that had appeared around them. Farewell, but remember this, the land will always be with you, as long as you remain true. And just like that, she was gone. The storm for the next few days, Cole made his way to the town, the new power within him both a blessing and a burden. He felt stronger, more alert. But at the same time, he couldn't shake the weight of the Apache woman's warning. What was he supposed to do with this gift? How could he use it without losing control? As he entered the town, something felt wrong. The air was thick and the sky seemed darker than it should be. People walked the streets in a hurried, nervous fashion, as though something was about to happen. Cole's instincts kicked in. He had been around long enough to know when danger was near. A loud crack of thunder echoed in the distance, even though the sky was clear. Then the wind began to pick up, swirling around the town in a frenzy. People screamed and ran for cover as the storm grew stronger. But this wasn't a normal storm. The wind howled like a wild animal and lightning flashed in unnatural patterns. Cole's heart pounded as he looked up at the sky. This was no ordinary storm. He closed his eyes, trying to focus. The power within him surged, a voice in his mind urging him to act. Without thinking, he raised his hand and reached out to the storm. For the first time since receiving the gift, Cole felt the power flow through him with purpose. The wind slowed, the lightning ceased, and the storm began to dissipate as though it were never there. The town fell silent, and the people slowly emerged from their shelters, staring at Cole in awe. Cole stood there, breathing heavily, his body pulsing with energy. The storm had been stopped, but what was this power? How far could he go with it?